Got a 2004 Chevy Silverado 2500 HD. This one has a 6.0 liter. It's a V8 gas engine. And pretty simple job today. I've just got to do an oil service. So the first thing you want to do is take the truck out for a drive, get the engine up to operating temperature. This way the oil is nice and warm. It'll drain out easier. Second thing I like to do, because even in 4x4 form, these Chevy trucks don't have a whole lot of ground clearance. I put them on ramps. Or you can use a jack and jack stands and lift it up, whichever is easier for you. Next, you're going to want to put an oil pan, catch pan underneath the truck. Probably a good idea to put a rag or a oil absorbent underneath it, as this job can get kind of messy. And then from there, we roll underneath the truck. This is why the ramps are a good idea. And then that's the drain plug. I'm going to use a 15 millimeter to loosen it. Usually they're on pretty snug. This one was very loose. As you notice, the oil's probably going to hit this exhaust pipe, so I usually grab a piece of cardboard, fold it over there. That way the customer doesn't complain of an oil burning smell after the job's done. So we'll cover that exhaust pipe and then pull the drain plug and let it drain into the pan. So something like this. Let me switch hands. This is why I like to cover the exhaust pipe, because it's going to be a mess otherwise. And it helps redirect the oil towards the pan and not behind the pipe or around the pipe. So you go ahead and let her drain. This truck holds 6 quarts of oil, so it's a good idea to use a drain pan big enough to handle that. Now I'm coming in behind the, from underneath the driver's door, looking towards the front of the truck. And if you look right there, that's the oil filter. That's the next thing you're going to want to remove. If you're lucky, you can just grab onto it and pull real hard and spin it counterclockwise to remove it. Sometimes you'll need to use an oil filter wrench. I'll show you one that I like to use. Now this one is a strap style wrench. It pretty much fits anything. I don't know if you can see here, but it's just a cloth that ends up wrapping around, cloth strap that wraps around the oil filter. And you use a ratchet on the end of it, and that strap grabs on and pulls it on the filter, and eventually you loosen it. Something like this. And with a little bit of luck, you can get it to loosen. And I think I just broke it free. Once you break it free, it'll start dripping. I usually let it drip until it stops, and then from there pull it off the rest of the way and put it into the drain pan. Once you pull the oil filter off, you want to make sure that the O-ring from the filter doesn't get stuck on the block. Go ahead and put it in your oil pan and let it let it drip for as long as you'd like. I usually wait till it's pretty much done dripping. From here you can go ahead and clean off the drain plug. This is a magnetized one, so I went ahead and cleaned it off. And now I'm just going to screw it into the oil pan. Go ahead and use a 15mm and snug her down to factory specs, which I'll list in the comments or in the video description. But generally speaking, you just want to go snug with a wrench, and that's it. Doesn't need to be any tighter than that. Once you get the drain plug in, it's time to clean the oil filter boss on the bottom of the block. Use a clean rag and get all the dirty oil residue off of it and get that surface nice and clean so that you can screw the new oil filter on. This is a new oil filter. You want to make sure the O-ring is in place. Important to put a little bit of clean engine oil all around this O-ring here so that you can screw it onto the block without any issues, and so that the oil filter will come off next time around. It kind of sucks when the filter is screwed on dry. They really get stuck on there whenever you try to take them off in the future. And since this truck has a straight up and down mounting for the filter, I'm going to go ahead and pour some motor oil, brand new clean motor oil, into the filter until it's almost to the top. And the owner wanted me to use Royal Purple, so this is the oil that we'll be using in this truck. That Royal Purple is kind of strange oil. It's actually purple in color. But here's the oil filter. If you're wondering, this is a Napa 1042. That's the appropriate filter for this truck. And anyway, the filter's been lubed, and I put some oil in the filter, and that's so that the engine can get oil right away. It's not having to fill the filter before sending oil to the rest of the engine passages. It's one less thing for it to do. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and screw this onto the engine block. Okay, and so it goes a little something like this. Go ahead, and there's the clean engine block. Oil filter brought up very carefully. You want to screw it all in by hand, like so. Just let the threads engage, and then eventually you can get to the point where you can torque the oil filter down. What I like to do is I like to torque them down until it's snug by hand. This is not heavy equipment. You don't need to go anything beyond that. Otherwise the filter gets stuck and you're just going to have a headache next time you have to do it. Went ahead and used brake clean on the bottom of this engine block here so that any oil residue that was from removing the drain plug or the oil filter is now gone. We want to be professional here and clean up after ourselves and do a good job. I also went ahead and put the mileage and the date on the bottom of the oil filter. That's just something I like to do. Probably from my days working at a military motor pool. Okay, home stretch. Now it's just a matter of putting oil back into the engine. As you can see here, 530 is what was recommended from GM. Anyway, that's the oil fill. Go ahead and stick a clean funnel there, unless you're absolutely sure that your oil pouring skills are great. I tend to be shaky, so I use funnels. And from there, go ahead and add oil. Man, this is some funky stuff. It's purple, dark purple. I know from experience that this engine will take 6 quarts of oil. If you're not sure, you can start with like 5. A little less than what the rated oil capacity is. Put the 5 in, and then pull the dipstick and check the fluid level and see where you're at from there. If you're between the add and the minimum mark, you can go ahead and start the engine, let it run for a good 35-45 seconds. Let the oil pressure build up, and then shut the engine down and let it sit on level ground for a few minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, and then recheck the oil level. You might want to pull the dipstick out, clean it, and take a reading a couple of times just to make sure you got a good accurate reading, and add oil as necessary to get it to the full mark. Very important that you do not overfill the engine. It's always better to run just a hair low than it is overfilled. But anyway, we're just going to go ahead and put oil in this engine. Okay, so I just pulled the dipstick here. I put just a little over 5 quarts in, and we're about halfway up on the dipstick. The full mark is that last dot at the end of the hashed area. Let's see if I can put a finger on it right there. You don't want it to go any higher than that when the vehicle is sitting on level ground. Overfilling an engine is bad. Once you've put the proper amount of oil in the engine, the next step is to reset the oil life meter. And that's where the oil level is with 6 quarts of oil, engine on level ground. It's 3/4 the way up the dipstick. You can put a quarter quart more in to get it all the way full, but that's not really necessary. As long as it's, I like to keep it above the halfway mark. But like I said, you don't want to overfill an engine with oil. It's not very good for them. And on a final note, you want to dispose of the old oil filter and the used motor oil in accordance with local law. In my location, the nearby landfill has an oil reclamation tank. I believe they fill that tank up with used motor oil and gear oil, and once they get close to full, they pump that out and then send it off island to a location where the oil can be refined or recycled. The last thing you want to do is to reset the oil life meter. As you'll see here in just a second, we've got the change engine oil warning up, and well, as you know, we've just changed the motor oil. So to do this, all you have to do is step on the accelerated pedal 3 times all the way to the floor, and then oil life meter is reset. Anyway, that's how you do an oil change on one of these Chevy pickups. The process is pretty much the same from 1999 on through current. Of course, consult your owner's manual if you want to know what kind of oil is required for the engine you're working on, and the capacity, and of course what sort of oil filter you need. Anyway, hope this helps. Thanks for watching.